This started with the Rams, those stinkers. We saw them start doing the 5 and 6 man fronts. They were the first kind of to do it against the 49ers and just said, you know what? We're going to clog the middle of the field. We're going to stop the run. We're going to make Jimmy throw it deeper outside the numbers, which he has proven he has yet to do. And if you go to the Broncos game, you get the touchdown drive early on the second drive of the game. You come out the very next series, 5-man overloaded front with 5D linemen. You know, it's not your traditional 3-4 type setup. They had 5D linemen out there and basically a gap defense. You even saw some 6D line fronts versus the Broncos, and it shut the offense down. Now we're going against the Rams, the architect of this gap style defense against the Niners. How in the world do the 49ers finally have success against that 6-man front? And again, this is the answer, right? This is why you draft Trey Lance. But it didn't pan out the way that you had hoped to. What do we do with Jimmy in this offense now to defeat that stacked front?
Yeah, so that's an interesting kind of rabbit hole. I'll try not to get too deep down that rabbit hole because you actually, if you look back to the Super Bowl, Patriots Rams, right? That was what Bill Belichick came out with against the Rams in the Super Bowl,
Mhm.
and it shocked everybody. And they went, okay, because the Rams were so wide zone heavy. You know, obviously McVay coming from Shanahan, it was very wide zone heavy, and so he was running that 5 and 6 man front against the Rams in the Super Bowl. They just completely shut down a high-powered Rams offense that Super Bowl, and everybody goes, "Wow, okay, they've cracked this wide zone Shanahan scheme offense. Like how to defeat it." So that was 2018, right? 2019 comes around. 2020, we play the Patriots. Okay, it was Jimmy was just coming back. It was after the horrible Dolphins game. He had the ankle injury. We play the Patriots. The Patriots came out and tried to do the same thing. Okay, I remember looking at the film, and this was one thing that was so fascinating to me when I went and watched that game a couple of years ago. Was the cat and mouse game with Shanahan and Belichick, because Belichick was running 6-man fronts, and it was the same thing. It was almost like 6D linemen. Okay, and we ended up scoring 33 that game.
Yeah.
And Shanahan was constantly doing things to take advantage of the 6-man. He'd go 5-man and he would throw it. And it was interesting because he threw it more against the 5-man than he threw it against the 6-man. And it had to do, he was running a lot of screens against the 6-man because it had to do with what numbers advantage you could get, and using the screen game as an extension of the run game. And every time the Patriots would go 5-man, they would run man coverage. And then he was using the matchups of Ayuk and Kittle in man coverage. They were winning their matchups. And so we were able to do that. And we completely dominated the Patriots. It was their worst home loss in like 20 years for the Patriots.
Yeah, rushed for almost 200 yards that game, if I remember right. Like,
Right,
I mean, they were just doing whatever they wanted.
right. And it was a really interesting matchup there. Okay, now fast forward to last year's NFC Championship game. We're seeing that same 6-man front. I think there was also a big element of surprise there. Because when you look at the previous 6 games we played against the Rams didn't run that front. Like they weren't running that front heavy the whole time. And it reminds me, I'm a big history nerd, so I'll try not to get too deep into this. Sometimes losers in wars have the advantage the next time the countries fight. Germany had this during World War II. They were the loser World War One, and what they did is they went and they spent 10 years figuring out why they lost. And they came up with a bunch of new tactics to say, this is why we lost. We're going to change the way we're doing this because we obviously couldn't win. So we need to do something different. And they attacked in a different way.
The
And
Schleifen plan.
right.
Oh, my man Johnny. I love it.
And
Sorry.
and and the allies, the winners, they didn't know what to change because they had won. So they're sitting there going, okay, when they were coming out to war, they said we can do the same thing we did before because we're better at this. And so they had the exact same defensive plan that they had in 1914 when it was 1940, and it was destroyed by new tactics and new strategy. That's a lot of what I saw in the NFC Championship game. The Rams had been beat 6 times. They said, we cannot win the way we've been trying to play defense. We can't win in this way. They came out and they ran a different defense than they ran. And so I think there was some of that with the change in defensive style, because there was some things that, like, honestly, our offensive line was very confused. I remember we had a 3rd and 1 and we ran a power play and both guards pulled and ran into each other. And it was like, what is going on in your head to where you guys can't figure out what the call was along this line?
Right.
And you saw so many breakdowns in pass protection. You saw so many breakdowns in the run game of guys not handing guys off. So there was a serious lack of preparation against that front. Now, again, that to me that says this week the 49ers are on the other side of that, and they're gonna say, okay, if you're gonna come out in this six-man front, we're gonna do something. To me, that means spread it out. I think you have to spread out against the six-man front. Because I looked at a lot of games this week. I looked at Tampa Bay, Green Bay. I went back and looked at Chicago, Green Bay. I went and looked at the LA and Cardinals game. And what you're also seeing too around the league is a lot of these condensed splits like we love to do. Kyle loves to bring those receivers in close to the line because he loves crackdown blocks. He
Mhm.
loves those to get on the edge. A lot of teams are pretty much stacking the box area with that. They're condensing along with it, and they're saying, look, if you're going to throw it, you want to try and go deep, you're going to have to get through all this crowd and beat our safeties with speed. And there's not many teams that are able to have long-term success against this. I mean, like I said, the Green Bay Tampa game, Tampa was not able to do much, and they were doing the same thing. I mean, a lot of these formations were just like Shanahan has, very condensed splits. Green Bay was defending them very similarly. Bring up 5, 6 men on the line, put 9, 10 guys in the box, and Green Bay or in Tampa struggled against that. So to me, when you look at the success we had against Denver, it was from that drive. We spread it out. We
Yeah.
spread it out more. Because now you're having bigger bodies in space, and it was so frustrating because after that drive, then all of a sudden it was like we didn't spread out anymore,
None.
and we
And
went right back to those condensed splits.
And not only that, like Bobby here, I appreciate the comment. He says, I think Denver might be the best defense we face, maybe all year. So I think moving forward, offense should do better. Yeah, it's definitely a top echelon for what we're going against. And, we're used to the Rams being kind of a top 5 defense. They're very far from it. Falcons torched them.
The 49ers Rush Podcast.